Now, in a world run by oil, what are the implications of soaring prices amid the current Middle East tensions? Joining us tonight to discuss this and its effect on the Philippines is global investment banker Stephen CuUnjieng. Welcome to The Big Story.
Thank you for inviting me again. I'm sorry it's under such trying circumstances, but we'll do our best to explain.
Very dire. First of all, domestically, let's look at the domestic front. The government is looking at measures to lessen the impact on all of us. But what would be the impact of removing the excise tax as well as VAT on petroleum?
Well, it's a short-term solution which is needed for an emergency situation. Now, it would have been nicer if we had some contingency planning ahead of time, which other countries do, to scenario play situations which may be black swans, but black swans do happen. But it's necessary because I think if you look at prior to the talk about suspending the excise tax, I know some employers, even prior, were already offering work from home from 1 or 2 days just because of inflation and rising prices in general. So if you exacerbate it with this, it's even worse. But frankly, the problem is it doesn't stop with fuel prices. The effect is broader. And if I can explain a little bit, what are
Please go ahead.
two of the other things. So first, there's the obvious, which is fuel prices are going to go up. Second, do you realize about 30%, 1/3 of world fertilizers come through the Middle East, urea and phosphate and nitrogen. And that is as we get into planting season in the West, as winter ends. So that's also going to increase food prices altogether, not just fuel. Now, maybe not immediately, but eventually as planting season goes through. Then the third aspect, which is also not been discussed too much, which is extremely serious as fuel prices and fertilizer prices, which will affect food prices, is the need for working capital. I mean, on December, I believe 16, Brent was at 59.48. All right? It's today at over 100. It reached a high of 111. You're talking about almost a doubling of the price. What does that mean for us who import fuel? Basically, it means you will need double the working capital just to finance your purchases. And that increases leverage of the fuel importers and the pressure on the banks as well. Because now, let's say if you used to order, let's use a random number, $100 million worth of oil or fuel or finished products. You'll now need double that. And that's a big financing cost and a big capital need. First, you have to have access to the fund financing. And second, it will be at double the amount.
So what tools does government have to address all these you enumerated?
I'll be very honest with you, very limited. That's the problem with imported inflation. You don't have control. It's what is done to you, not what you do to them. All you can do is ameliorate it. Now,
Stevie,
in a long-term position, which may be something we should look at very, very seriously in anticipation of the next time something like this happens, is you can do things to ameliorate it. Like, you need to be very aggressive in pushing for, if you go, let's say, like to Hong Kong and Singapore, most of the buses are electric or hydrogen powered because they want to lessen the impact of oil. Second, you also have, besides changing the fuel mix you have to be more diversified, if not only green, you also have to deal with the structure. How do you deliver the aid? Ideally, the best way to do it will be to target it, which is, for example, if you had a more robust public transportation system, you could subsidize directly the cost of transport rather than just give subsidies, which, frankly, you give a subsidy across the board on excise tax on fuel, that benefits people like us. Yes,
Exactly,
we can,
exactly.
yeah, we can have that benefit. It's good for us, but who frankly needs it the most? I mean, like the former mayor of Colombia said, what is his definition of an advanced country? It's where the rich people take public transport to work. I can tell you, when I was in Hong Kong, I didn't have a car. I would take public transport every day because it was efficient. When I go to New York, I rarely even take a taxi. I try to take the subway and, if necessary, an express bus. So these are long term solutions, but if we don't start addressing them, the next time it happens, we will face the same dilemma again.
Well, Stevie, Senate President Tito Soto has proposed a national petroleum reserve because, as we know, our oil industry has been deregulated since I think 1998. Is that a good idea to have a national petroleum reserve, or is it a good idea to revisit some sort of regulation or at least a
Well,
little bit more?
yes and maybe. Okay, is my answer. Yes, we should have a strategic petroleum reserve because one of the problems we have, and I've said this many times on this show previously and others, is we have this teacher's pet mentality towards what our, let's say, multilateral overlords tell us to do. Leave it to private sector, government is necessary, but yet all these governments that tell us to do that, they know certain things, what they call the commanding heights of an economy. Transportation, fuel, food security are too important just to leave to the private sector and market forces. You need a safety valve for times like this. So the US, which is a completely deregulated oil and petroleum market, maintains a SPI, Strategic Petroleum Reserve, of certain number of days. And they're already a net exporter nowadays because of fracking. Yet they keep a strategic petroleum reserve. And now they're telling the administration in the US to start using it. They haven't decided whether to, but the point is they can do it because they have it. Now, so yes, we should do that. Now, on re-regulation, again, if you look at what was the lesson in the 1997 crisis that Indonesia and us didn't take. Indonesia since made some steps back to ameliorate that. But what people like Thailand and Malaysia did, when they had to sell off things completely to the private sector and to foreigners, yes, they did that. Like I'll give an example: cement. Okay, we sold nearly all our cement companies to foreigners. Now some have bought back. Ramon Ang, to his credit, on Northern Cement and Eagle Cement, is a domestic producer. But what did Thailand do? They knew they couldn't protect and defend all their cement companies, but they kept the biggest one, Siam Cement, locally owned with strong government support because they said this is too important just to leave to market forces. So should we re-regulate partially or have a stake in a domestic refiner and downstream producer? It is something I think that can be considered. But
Maharlika
again, the
Fund?
problem is we went for. Sorry.
I know you're part of, this is probably your first interview since you've been on the board of the MIF, the Maharlika Investment Corporation.
So is it a strategic energy,
I
a
mean, you
strategic
Okay.
sector?
It is a sector, if you look at the principles and the industries that Maharlika wants to support, yes, it is included. Now, is there an immediate plan or prospect that's in the pipeline? It's at very early stages because this just fell upon us.
Right.
But as a country, we really need to think about having buffers and safety valves in what we would call the commanding heights. So I would be supportive of it, but I mean, I'm just one of the directors.
I hope you'd also look at food security because,
Well,
wow,
I've
we
been
import.
I've been talking about that before anybody did when we were all import. I mean, okay, let me say something that Senator George Aiken said many decades ago. He said, "I have never seen a nation starved into democracy, but I have seen many nations starved into dictatorship." If you even look at the European Union, it started out as the European Steel and Coal Community. Then it became the European Union, then became the European Community. And part of what they do is they run surpluses for staples. Now, you go to Hong Kong and Singapore, a lot of times the chicken is from France.
Right.
I mean, basically you have, and pork is from Denmark because they sort of export some of it at a loss, because the most important is to make sure the country never runs out of staples and the farmers are or I won't say happy, but they have a living that they can support and a structure that they can continue. So yes, I think in the end you cannot import your way to security if there are disruptions in the imports.
And you just said,
For example, look at India. We import, the three biggest exporters of rice in the world are India, Thailand, and Vietnam. India has already said they're having a hard time maintaining production because 40% of their fertilizer, which is used for corn, rice, and everything else, comes from the Middle East.
Well,
So what happens now if yields go down?
we will have to pay so much for our rice imports.
If you can even get it. Remember during COVID, we signed up for all these vaccines, but when there were delays in producing them, what did the producers do? Even those under license, we'll take care of our people first.
Is this the
Which
dire
is
scenario
normal.
that you see?
Well, again, what is the main determinant of this? Time. Because time determines pain. As I jokingly tell people, if you tell me to hold my breath for 30 seconds, I can. You tell me to hold my breath for 3 minutes, I'm dead. So if this lasts long, it will be very dire. If it lasts briefly, it will just be painful for a
And so,
while.
how do you see it now? What scenario are you seeing? Do you
I
see
would
that
be. I
a
don't want to be.
prolonged conflict?
I don't want to be an alarmist, but I also want to be realistic. I read in Reuters, or was it? No, it was in the New Yorker. Robin Wright, who's a very serious foreign policy and defense expert. What did she write? You know how much this is costing the U.S.? $900 million a day.
Day.
And half of their air force and 1/3 of their naval forces are right now deployed in the Middle East. Now, how long can this last? The answer is, who has a higher tolerance for pain?
okay. Stevie,
I don't know.
do you have any like low-hanging fruit, short-term solutions that you can quickly talk us through? Are you seeing any glimmer of something that we can do or the government can do quickly?
No, quickly, all we can do is what we're discussing now, because of also the nature of this is dating back to EDSA, before EDSA even. We don't have an effective means, or not effective, an efficient means of delivering aid and services broadly. You saw that with Ayuda and COVID. This is a previous administration. You've seen it in the past. As the population gets bigger and the situation in supply chains become more complex, sometimes you really have to make the investment to take care of it yourself. Because in the end, nobody will take care of you before they take care of themselves. You can have all this wonderful trade and all these things during normal times. The problem is, this is like a rainy day fund. What do you do when there are crises? Now, the government, to its credit, it's making the moves it can under the circumstances. But somebody asked me once in a forum, what should we do in the short term? I said, stop thinking in the short term. That's what we can do. Because you have to have long-term solutions, long-term scenario planning, and long-term protection of your economic and social viability to do this. Now, in a crisis that comes quickly like this, yeah, you have to play the tools with the tools and the options you have. But this is not the time to find new options because you cannot create them overnight. This is boring, serious, painstaking work that usually is done painstakingly and carefully when you have the time to do it. So, given the situation we're in, I think the government is being proactive and doing what they can to their credit. But is there a silver lining for a short-term solution? No, there isn't.
Okay.
Well, thank you for bringing us back to reality.
I mean, because realistically, what can you do? You import 100% of your petroleum, except for the gas from Malampaya, you import all the other natural gas. What do? You have to pay the price, assuming the supply is there. And don't forget, the Strait of Hormuz is closed right now. So you see people like Qatar. Qatar Energy is one of the largest producers of fertilizer in the world with natural gas as a feedstock. They have temporarily shut production because they cannot get the feedstock. China and Taiwan, two of our biggest sources of refined products, which is gasoline, diesel, and the like, have said for the short term, let's not export because we need to keep our supply
That's true.
for ourselves in the short term. That's why I agree with Senator Soto. This is something we need to revisit. We cannot plan as if every day is a happy day or even a normal day.
Well, we thank you for your insights and for talking to us tonight, global investment banker Stephen CuUnjieng.